Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. This is my murder beat where we talk about true crime while doing our makeup.
So for today's case, we're going to be talking about the Freeway Phantom killings. And so yeah, if you want to see how we got this look, get ready with us, grab a glass of wine, and keep on watching. We are going to be talking about the Freeway Phantom murders. And I didn't know that was the guy's name, or the guy's title.
Yeah.
That he was the Freeway Phantom murderer.
He got that name because he would kill his murder victims and literally, sadly, throw them off the side of major freeways.
Like, kind of right in the same area, right?
Yeah, like they were all thrown off of like major intersections and freeways, so super sad. This happened from April 25th, 1971, all the way to September 5th, 1972. So he had a little bit more of a year of a kill spree. He had 6 murder victims. Okay, so the first victim that was found on the evening of April 25th, 1971, 13-year-old girl Carol Spinks was sent by her older sister to go buy groceries at the local 7-Eleven. It was located about half a mile away from her home, just across the border from Maine. On her way home from the store, Carol was abducted. Her body was found 6 days later on a grassy embankment next to the northbound lanes of I-295, about 1,500 feet south of Suitland Parkway.
She was how old?
She was 13 years old.
Yeah, and that's not even the youngest. The youngest girl's like 10 years old.
Yeah, and what's crazy is like going to just go buy groceries is probably so normal.
Yeah, like...
And, like, you're in the 70s, so, like, you just walked everywhere. Mm-hmm. You just went and got stuff.
That young, you're, like, not thinking about it.
Your parents were probably working.
Mm-hmm.
So Carol Spinks was, she had been raped and strangled to death.
So sad.
Did I say she was found 6 days later?
I don't know.
She was found 6 days later after missing.
Authorities said she'd been dead for about 2 or 3 days prior to being found. So
he kept her for a few days.
Yeah.
About 6 weeks later, in early July, a second victim was found. It was 16-year-old girl Darlena Johnson. She had been on her way to work. She was found very close to the spot where the body of Carol Spinks was actually found. Investigators were unable to determine a cause of death, however, as the body was too decomposed.
10 weeks later, the body of... what's her name? Darlenia Johnson was found by an employee of the Department of Highways and Traffic in kind of the same area as the first body. And when he made the call, dispatchers sent it to police, and they came back with a 10-8, which apparently means moving on, nothing found here, nothing to be alarmed here. Yeah.
Oh my god,
insane. So pretty much that just means they didn't get out of their cars and just drove away, just kind of looked, because they got a call that there's a body on the side of the highway kind of thing. So looked, didn't see, didn't even get out.
Like, look, if there's an actual body laying there, like, that's a pretty severe thing for someone to call in.
No, yeah, they just didn't care. It's freaking bullshit. Like, they totally would have found her. And this is the part that gets me. So her body was the only one that they couldn't, they had a really hard time identifying because it was so decomposed. Oh, they couldn't determine the cause of death because it was so decomposed. So if they would have, people were like freaking out. Like, if they would have actually looked and like gone and seen like the first time around, they would have like,
who knows, they could have maybe recovered something.
Given more kind of, not really closure, but like known more about it. Like, just the fact that they didn't and left it there. And then so that happened, and then a week later, one of the callers, so I think that same guy went back because he had like heard that nothing was done, found the body there a week later. So the body was still there.
I read that. And that he was still like angry. She was still there.
Still there. How disgusting. What if that was her daughter? Like, that is disgusting. So he calls them again and was like angry about it. Like, this is exactly where she is. Like, what are you guys doing? You need to come out here. And that's when they finally came out and like discovered it, but it's like, oh my god, like,
that is so disgusting. And
finding that out, that like the people that are supposed to protect you, like people that are supposed to figure out who killed your daughter, like just left her there. Like,
well,
that's
could you
disgusting.
imagine that guy who just had a feeling like maybe I should go back and check?
Yeah.
And then,
well, because he didn't hear anything on the news, so obviously he was like, what, really? Like, this is a huge thing. There's a little girl's body. Like, what?
After Johnson was found, just over 2 weeks later, the killer struck again. The victim was 10-year-old Brenda Cockett, who had gone to the store on the instruction of her mother. This time it was a little different. Brenda made 2 calls from home while in the company of her killer. We didn't mention earlier, all the victims are black, so when Brenda called the first time, when she called to home, her sister picked up, and she said she had been picked up by a white man and was on her way home in a cab. Before her sister had no time to answer, Brenda actually said goodbye and then hung up. She called again. The second call Brenda made was answered by her mom's boyfriend, whom she told... Because her mom was out looking. Yeah. So her boyfriend was there. He picked up. She told him where she was. This time, she said she was in the white man's home. So when Brenda called the second time, talking to the boyfriend, she basically just repeated what she said on the first phone call, indicating she was alone in a house with a white male. The boyfriend asked Brenda to have the man come to the phone. Heavy footsteps were heard in the background. Brenda said, "I'll see you," and hung up.
Yeah, that, "I'll see you."
So there's thoughts that...
No, this is important. So Brenda called 25 minutes after talking to the boyfriend, who asked if she knew where she was in Virginia. So the boyfriend asked Brenda if she knew where she was in Virginia, and Brenda replied, "No, did mother see me?" And so the detectives think the killer told her to ask that so he could be on guard to know if, like, the mother saw them.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, how crazy is that?
Well, yeah, and, like, the whole time, the detectives think that he was just feeding her this information to say, like...
Yeah.
This wasn't her.
And then the boyfriend was like, "No, how could your mother see you if you're in Virginia?" And then that's when he said, "Let me talk to the guy," and that's when she said, "I'll see you later." So he just wanted to get that information. That's why he had her call him.
That's so crazy.
Because how else would she get access to a phone? She's so young. And
yeah, and they also think that they just fed her incorrect information. Mm-hmm. There's thoughts that the killer might be black, actually, and that's why they said he's white.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, there was that kind of theory going around. I don't think so. I think he was a white male.
Yeah.
And he probably told her to say, like, "Oh, I'm here," and then she added in the white male part. Mm-hmm. That's just my thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
After Brenda, the African American community of Washington, D.C. was terrified for obvious reasons. The M.O. of the killer was clear. He abducted young, defenseless black girls who were usually out doing normal, everyday life things, like going to work or to the store. They were raped, strangled, and then dumped at various sites along the side of the freeway. So everyone in Washington, D.C. is freaking out. Yeah. Which I don't blame them. This is terrifying. Like, at one point, I just would not allow my child to go outside.
No.
Because, like,
yeah.
You're done.
You know, like, what they're looking for. You're like, no, you're going to be with me if we go to the store. And, like, yeah.
So, on October 1st, the killer struck for the 4th time. This time, the victim was 12-year-old Nenemoshia Yates. I'm so sorry if I'm saying that wrong.
Yeah, it's hard.
Who was heading home from the grocery store when she went missing. Within hours, her body was discovered. All of them are like the grocery store. I know. Well, that's the crazy thing. They're all, like, running errands. So
I'm like, why are they still going out? I would have been like...
It makes me wonder if he was kind of watching them and knew they like run errands and kind of their schedule. I don't know, but within hours, her body was discovered on the side of the freeway. She had also been raped and strangled. It was after this murder that the killer became known as a Freeway Phantom. Given his elusiveness and choice of location for leaving the bodies of his victim.
And this is when he left the note, right?
Yeah. The next murder is on November 15th, which is a month and a half after the last one. This was victim Brenda Woodward. She was the oldest of the victims at 18 years old. This time it was evening and therefore dark when the killer struck. Brenda had been having dinner with a friend. The last anyone saw of her was on the bus home. Then in the early hours of November 16th, police discovered a body once again on the side of the freeway. The killer changed his tactics slightly this time. Brenda had been raped and stabbed as well as strangled. And I believe Brenda was the only one that was stabbed. Her killer had removed her coat and placed it over her body. In the coat pocket, a note was discovered, and it read, "This is tantamount to my insensitivity to people, especially women. I will admit the others when you catch me if you can. Freeway Phantom."
He uses it. He's like, yay, they gave me a name.
Yeah.
It's like, that's his thing. It's like, I hope they learn from this, like, maybe stop naming the murders, like, Zodiac Killer and, like
the Night Stalker.
Because it's like, oh, they love,
Golden.
like, I feel like they love that power, and it's like, just call him.
Well, because people start looking at them like they're, like, something else.
Yeah.
Which is terrifying because they're not actual monsters. But they look at it as like, oh, I'm like in this other category now of person.
I have so much power.
Yeah.
I have so much power. I'm like this, I have this title, so I have to live up to it pretty much.
So what's interesting about this note is that the word tantamount is a word you consider to be a person with relatively high level of education. I've never ever used that word.
I had to look it up.
Like, what?
Means like equal to, right?
And it's crazy. I'll put the note up here because there's actually some spelling mistakes in here. Tantamount is spelled correctly, but insensitivity is not.
Yeah,
it
so
seems
strange.
like it seems like a mistake you would make like if you're in a rush or a hurry. But
just strange to have such like a smart word of tantamount, like no one's heard that, and then spell insensitivity wrong.
Yeah. But then the FBI actually did a written match, and this is actually Brenda's handwriting on the note. So clearly he was giving her that, and I wonder if he like told her how to spell tantamount, and then told her to spell insensitivity wrong.
I don't know unless she just knew. I don't know unless she just knew how to spell that, but not insensitivity, or she was just rushing because she was so freaked out, you know.
Yeah. Another thought was that Brenda possibly knew her killer. Her handwriting wasn't shaky and the note was punctuated. But I feel like at the same time you can't really guarantee that. Like, and that's the other thing with the other Brenda. They thought that she knew her killer, but I just feel like not all these people could know and then have the same MO. Like this isn't. I don't think any of them knew who the killer was.
I don't think they knew who it was at all.
Okay, so she died on November 15th of 1971. And the FBI actually thought the killer moved on or was arrested or who knows what.
It was a significant amount of time.
So 10 months later, in September of 1972, a truck driver found the body of Diane Williams on the side of the freeway. She had spent her last evening with her boyfriend, who had walked her to the bus stop and went home. Diane had been strangled to death. So what's crazy is that there was such a big gap. But also, the crazy thing with like serial I'm done.
How is it you, not me? It's usually me.
I'm going home.
You are home.
Go home.
Say I'm going to bed.
Go to bed. So, what's crazy to me is that time gap.
Yeah.
Like, why was there such a big time gap?
Maybe he probably got, well, it doesn't say if there was like they didn't have any good leads, right?
No.
So it would make sense if maybe he stopped for a little bit because he got freaked out because they were kind of getting closer.
He was probably just like, he was just killing people kind of right after each other. Like, the first 5 were from April to September. So, that's like one every month?
Yeah.
So, that's kind of a lot. So, yeah, it's true. He could have started slowing down just in fear of being caught. But just makes you wonder what, like, happened where he started, like, going at it again. I don't know. It's crazy. So, the first suspect was a psychiatrist and a wealthy Prince George's developer who owned property in Southeast.
And then, following him, they questioned a man who owned a teen club where Darlena Johnson hung out, and someone else who allegedly saw her in the car with Johnson after she was reported missing. So those they didn't have names on who those suspects were, but their strongest suspect was a guy named Robert Askins, a computer technician and former patient at St. Elizabeth's. So further research into Askins, I'm not going to say that right, into like his life and stuff, it was said that one of the detectives found out that he uses the word tantamount within his daily life or his work.
Yeah, like quite often. Which is a very unusual word for somebody to use.
So obviously, a red flag that was found in the note. They also found soiled women's scarves, photos of girls and young women, a knife used in another crime, and an essay from a girl. So that's looking a little suspicious.
In Askins'
yes.
possession?
Well, after another warrant was issued, they found...
For Askins?
For Askins. Askins.
Oh, Askins.
Askins. Detectives found 3 buttons and a gold earring under his back seat. So that's what the records show, and that's interesting because it also says further, I think it was before I read this earlier, that there were buttons missing on one of the girls' shirts. So that's kind of insane. I don't know if it was like multiple buttons or like just one of them.
So other suspects was the Green Vega rapist. They were a gang who would abduct and rape girls and women around the Washington, D.C. and Maryland area. I guess they abducted victims along the side of a freeway. The girls were also similar to the ones of the Freeway Phantom killings. One of the gang members actually snitched on another one, claiming that like they knew some kind of information or something. When police went to go talk to him, ask him questions, he basically said he had no idea what was going on. And then also he was able to provide alibis. Okay, so right around the time, the police had other things on their mind, sadly. During the span of the killings, the Watergate scandal and subsequent action and investigations were in full swing. As Watergate created national outcry and media attention, the Freeway Phantom murders were forced into the background, attracting little interest from the public outside from where the girls actually lived. So that was just like an unfortunate thing that happened.
Their parents are like, wait.
Yeah, like, have you found my children yet? Like,
yeah. Well, everyone else is like moving on. Usually, how does everyone else is moving on? You're still trying to keep it like alive.
Yeah, it's so sad because that's the thing with like unsolved murders or kidnappings where you can't find them. It's like these families are still trying to like 9 days.
Yeah, you got to remember that they're day and night. That's all they're doing.
It's so sad. So, one of the big questions about this case, and this case is actually still unsolved. They have still not found the murder to this day. There were also 2 other girls that went missing kind of during the time a few years later in 1975.
Was this the same location? Wasn't it?
Yes, this was in Washington, D.C. There were 2 girls. They were both white. There was an abduction and a murder of Catherine and Sheila Leon. They were snatched during a shopping trip in the Mall of Wheaton, Maryland. The bodies of Catherine and Sheila were never found, but police worked tirelessly to catch a killer. In 2015, after a cold case investigation team took up the case, they were able to gather evidence to charge Lloyd Welch with the murder of the 2 girls. Welch, a convicted sex offender, was already in prison, and in 2017, he confessed to the murders. So it's just a honestly, super sad situation.
Yeah.
From, other people being found to Watergate and just the case not getting the attention it should.
Obviously, like, race has a huge thing that comes into it. It's like, okay, so these 2 white girls go missing, but we have 6 black girls that have gone missing, have been missing since the 70s, and just gonna put that on the back burner. It's super sad.
So there was other evidence on Brenda, the 18-year-old. There was actually a semen sample on her shirt. They gathered that for evidence, and they didn't have the technology back then to test it or anything, but one of the detectives, I can't remember remember his name. He actually said to keep this in evidence in case it, you know, comes helpful in the future. So I think about 2006 they tried to test it again. But I guess when he first took the sample, he actually gave it to the FBI thinking that something would happen with it, like right away, and nothing did. And so as of date, I think this sample is like still somewhere. Like I literally tried.
Like there was nothing else on.
No, I tried looking so hard about this. Okay, so basically this sample is just kind of lost somewhere. There's no
updated like
anything on it.
Sources. Yeah.
Later in the investigation, investigators also realized that 5 out of the 6 victims were found with a green synthetic carpet fiber on their clothing, a detail that had not been previously released. So later, with a consistent disorganization of the investigation, the entire DC police case file was actually lost. It's a super sad story.
The fact that, just no closure for the family is still out there.
None, yeah. I'm sure they're
probably
still
have
looking.
Killed so many other women, you know.
Oh, yeah, and that's the thing. You don't know how many more are actually linked to this. So, I mean, you just don't know. It's sad. That's the thing. With any kind of serial killer, they always suspect, like, it's probably more than they actually found. And that's, like, such a scary part. Because
you just don't know everything.
I want to know how many, like, unidentified, like, people during that time there were and stuff. And I don't know.
It's so sad.
It's super sad.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a finished look. If you like what you saw, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have any cases you'd like us to cover, please leave them in the comments below, and any new makeup products you'd like us to try, we would definitely appreciate that. So we'll see you in the next one.
Mine's empty, but cheers.
Cheers. Yeah.
I brought my little thing for my brush.
Biddle. It's super bitter. It's funny how we change and grow.
Change and grow.
No one sing along. And she goes, Monica, Monica.